In 1513, a broke, exiled diplomat named Niccolò Machiavelli wrote something so disturbing about human nature that the Catholic Church banned it, political leaders condemned it, and his own name became synonymous with evil for the next 500 years. Not because what he wrote was false, but because it was so uncomfortably, undeniably true that it threatened every comfortable illusion people held about loyalty, love, and human goodness. What Machiavelli observed wasn't about politics or princes. It was about fundamental human psychology that operates in every relationship you have right now with your partner, your friends, your family, your colleagues, everyone. And once you understand what he actually documented, you'll never see people the same way again. You'll never trust the same way again. You'll never be blindsided by betrayal again. Because here's what nobody tells you about Machiavelli. He wasn't teaching people how to be evil. He was revealing the evil, or, more accurately, the self-interested nature that already exists in every human heart, including yours. And the people who condemned him did so because they were using the exact techniques he described while pretending to operate from nobler principles. Today we're going deep into what Machiavelli actually observed about human nature. Not the distorted version you've heard about. The real observations that explain why your best friend disappeared when you needed them most. Why your partner's love evaporated when circumstances changed. Why your family's support came with invisible strings. Why your colleagues smiled while undermining you. This isn't theory. This is pattern recognition about human behavior that's operated for thousands of years and operates right now in every interaction you have. The only question is whether you'll see it clearly or keep pretending everyone around you operates from better motives than they actually do. The forbidden observation. Let me read you Machiavelli's exact words, written in exile after being tortured and stripped of everything he'd worked for. Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, covetous, and as long as you succeed, they are yours entirely. They will offer you their blood, property, life, and children when the need is far distant. But when it approaches, they turn against you. Read that again. Feel how it lands. Notice the resistance that comes up, the voice saying, "That's too cynical. That's not true of everyone. I'm not like that. My people aren't like that." That resistance? That's exactly what Machiavelli predicted. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Humans are extraordinarily skilled at maintaining public performances of loyalty and virtue while operating privately from pure self-interest. But here's what makes this observation brutal rather than just cynical. Machiavelli included himself in this assessment. He wasn't saying other people are selfish while he was noble. He was saying all humans, himself included, operate primarily from self-interest, and that recognizing this is the only way to navigate reality successfully, the test that proves he's right. Think about your closest relationships right now, the people you're most certain love you unconditionally. Now run this thought experiment. You lose everything: your money, your status, your looks, your health, your abilities, everything that makes you valuable or pleasant to be around. You become a burden rather than a benefit. How many people stay? Be honest. That number, that small, uncomfortable number, is the truth about human loyalty. Everyone else is there for what you provide, not who you are at your core. This isn't a condemnation, it's a description. And once you accept it, you can finally build relationships on realistic foundations instead of romantic delusions that collapse the moment they're tested. Machiavelli spent decades observing humans under pressure in war, in political collapse, in moments where survival depended on loyalty. And what he documented was a pattern so consistent, it might as well be a law of nature. Every human relationship operates fundamentally on self-interest, even when people genuinely believe they're acting from pure love, loyalty, or altruism. This is the core truth that changes everything. Not that people are evil or that love doesn't exist, but that human attachment is always rooted in what the other person provides. The provision might be emotional, practical, social, sexual, financial, or psychological, but it's always there. And when the provision stops, attachment evaporates. Watch this pattern in your own life. The friend who vanished. You had a close friend for years. Then circumstances changed, you moved, changed careers, got into a relationship, or stopped being fun because life got hard. Suddenly they're too busy to maintain the friendship. What happened? You stopped providing whatever benefit maintained their interest. Maybe you were entertaining, maybe you were useful, maybe you provided social access. When that benefit disappeared, so did they. The partner who lost interest. You were deeply in love. They claimed you were their everything. Then you lost your job, or got depressed, or stopped meeting their needs in some fundamental way. The love that seemed eternal evaporated within months. What happened? The exchange that sustained the relationship became unbalanced. You were taking more than you were giving, and human psychology doesn't tolerate that imbalance indefinitely. The family member who only calls when they need something. You haven't heard from them in months or years. Then they're in trouble, financial, emotional, practical, and suddenly they remember you exist. When the crisis passes, they disappear again. This pattern isn't unusual, it's the norm. Family relationships that feel unconditional are often just relationships where the exchange is less obvious, but equally real. The colleague who became distant. You used to be close at work, then you changed departments, or they got promoted, or your career paths diverged. The friendship that seemed genuine faded immediately. Why? Because the friendship was sustained by proximity, shared interests, and mutual professional benefit. Remove those factors, and the relationship had no independent foundation. Machiavelli would look at each of these scenarios and say, "Of course, what did you expect?" He observed that princes who thought their subjects loved them personally were shocked when those same subjects welcomed invading armies that promised better conditions. The love was never about the prince, it was about what the prince provided. Your relationships work the same way. The love isn't about you, it's about what you provide. And the moment you understand this, you stop being hurt by betrayals that were just people acting according to their nature when the exchange stopped benefiting them. The 3 core truths. Now, let's break down the specific mechanisms Machiavelli identified. These are the patterns that operate beneath every human relationship, whether people acknowledge them or not. Truth 1. People stay for benefits, not bonds, Machiavelli wrote. Men love according to their own will, and fear according to the will of the prince. Translation. People's affection is controlled by their own needs and desires, but their respect responds to your strength and enforcement of boundaries. This distinction is crucial. Affection is what people feel when you benefit them. Respect is what people demonstrate when you've proven you won't tolerate poor treatment. Most people confuse the two and wonder why the people who claim to love them most treat them worst. In romantic relationships, your partner doesn't stay because of your history together, because of the bond you've built, or because they made a commitment. They stay because the relationship continues to meet their needs better than available alternatives. The moment this calculation changes when they meet someone who provides what you provide plus something extra, or when you stop providing what made the relationship valuable, the history becomes irrelevant and the bond dissolves. This sounds harsh until you examine your own behavior honestly. You've done the same thing. That friend you drifted from, that ex you lost feelings for, that hobby you abandoned. You stopped because the cost exceeded the benefit. You weren't evil, you were human. Everyone operates this way. The only question is whether you'll admit it or keep pretending your affections are purer than everyone else's. In professional relationships, your employer doesn't keep you because they value you as a person or because they're loyal to employees who've served them well. They keep you because replacing you costs more than retaining you in money, time, knowledge loss, or organizational disruption. The moment this calculation inverts, you're gone. This is why long-tenured employees get fired without hesitation when budgets tighten. The years of loyalty, the personal sacrifices, the times you went beyond your job description, none of it matters. When the cost-benefit analysis changes, understanding this prevents the naive devastation of discovering your employer never cared about you personally. In family relationships, even family bonds, which we're taught are unconditional, operate on exchange principles. Parents who provide financial support often receive caregiving in old age. Siblings who were close as children drift apart when their lives diverge. Family members who take more than they give find themselves gradually excluded from family functions. The exchange might be less transactional than workplace relationships, but it's still exchange. And family members who violate the implicit bargain, who take without giving, who cause more problems than they solve, who demand support without providing, it eventually find themselves on the outside regardless of blood ties. Machiavelli's insight. Once you accept that all relationships are exchanges, you can stop being hurt by people acting according to the natural laws of exchange. Your focus shifts from "why did they betray me?" to "what exchange sustained this relationship and what changed?" Truth 2. People test your boundaries constantly. Here's where Machiavelli gets really practical. He wrote, "Men never do good unless necessity drives them to it." His observation: humans instinctively test boundaries to determine what they can get away with. When they encounter firm resistance, they respect the boundary and the person enforcing it. When they encounter weak resistance or no resistance, they push further. This isn't conscious malice in most cases, it's unconscious behavioral economics. Humans are wired to conserve energy and maximize benefit, which means they naturally gravitate toward taking more and giving less until they encounter consequences that make this strategy unprofitable. Watch this pattern in your relationships. The friend who always cancels plans at the last minute. They're testing whether you'll enforce consequences or just accept it. If you keep forgiving with no cost to them, they've learned they can disrespect your time without penalty. Why would they stop? You're teaching them that your boundaries are negotiable. The partner who speaks disrespectfully to you, they're testing whether you'll tolerate it or establish it as unacceptable. If you argue but ultimately accept the behavior, you've taught them that disrespect works. They can release frustration on you without losing you. That's a valuable service you're providing at cost to yourself. The colleague who takes credit for your work, they're testing whether you'll challenge them or let it slide. If you let it slide once, they've learned they can benefit from your work without sharing the rewards. Rational self-interest says, do it again. The family member who only contacts you when they need something, they're testing whether you'll maintain the relationship despite the imbalance. If you keep giving without requiring reciprocity, you've taught them that unbalanced taking is acceptable in this relationship. The mechanism Machiavelli identified. Humans respect boundaries that are enforced, not boundaries that are stated. You can tell people all day what you will and won't accept. What matters is what you actually tolerate when they test those boundaries. This is why the person who's always accommodating, always forgiving, always understanding, gets treated worse over time, not better. They've trained everyone around them that poor treatment carries no consequences. Meanwhile, the person who enforces clear boundaries, who will walk away, who will create consequences, who means what they say, gets treated with consistent respect. Machiavelli wrote that it's better to be feared than loved, because fear is based on consequences that don't depend on the other person's feelings or circumstances. They might stop loving you when it's convenient. They won't stop respecting your boundaries as long as violating them costs more than it benefits. The uncomfortable application: every relationship where you feel disrespected or taken advantage of, you're actually allowing. You're teaching people through your actions that they can treat you that way without losing access to you. The moment you enforce real consequences, reducing contact, withdrawing support, ending the relationship, behavior changes immediately or the person leaves. Either way, you win by no longer tolerating poor treatment. Truth 3. Attraction dies without strategic distance. Machiavelli understood something about power that applies directly to personal relationships. Complete accessibility destroys value, and total transparency eliminates intrigue. He advised princes to maintain elements of mystery, to be somewhat unpredictable, and to never be completely available or completely knowable. In modern relationships, this principle operates ruthlessly. The person who becomes completely available, completely transparent, and completely merged into another's life stops being a separate entity worth pursuing and becomes a utility to be accessed. In romantic relationships, this is why relationships often die after the moving in together phase. Not because proximity is inherently bad, but because many people respond to increased proximity by eliminating all independence, sharing everything, being available constantly, and merging their entire life into the relationship. What happens? The mystery evaporates. The person who was once intriguing becomes completely known. The person who was once pursued becomes always available. The separate individual becomes an extension, and extensions aren't attractive, they're utilities. Watch how this manifests. Early in relationships, you both have full lives. You have friends, hobbies, goals, and time apart. You share selectively. You maintain some mystery. The relationship is exciting because you're two complete people choosing to share time together. Then you get serious. You drop your friends. You abandon your hobbies. You share everything. You're available 24/7. You have no life outside the relationship. You've gone from being an interesting person they choose to spend time with to being a person whose entire existence revolves around them. The result? They lose interest. Not because they're shallow or cruel, but because you've eliminated what made you attractive. The sense that you're a complete person with a full life who chooses to include them, not someone who needs them to have a life. Machiavelli observed that the prince who granted audiences to anyone who asked became less respected than the prince whose time was valuable and scarce. In relationships, the person who's always available becomes taken for granted. The person who maintains scarcity of their time and attention remains valued. In all relationships, this pattern extends beyond romance. The friend who's always free whenever you call becomes the backup friend you contact when better options aren't available. The professional who responds to emails at 2 a.m. teaches people their time has no boundaries. The family member who always accommodates everyone else's needs becomes the one whose needs are never prioritized. The strategic distance isn't about playing games or being artificially unavailable. It's about maintaining genuine independence, having a life, interests, and priorities that exist outside any single relationship. This makes you interesting because you're not just a reflection of the other person. You're a separate entity worth engaging with. Machiavelli would recognize this as basic power dynamics. The person who needs nothing from the relationship has all the power. The person who's desperate for the relationship has none. By maintaining independence, emotional, social, practical, you avoid desperate dependence that makes you unattractive and guarantees poor treatment. The respect mechanism. Now we reach Machiavelli's most famous and most misunderstood observation. It is better to be feared than loved. if you cannot be both. Everyone focuses on feared and misses the actual insight. Let me give you his full reasoning. Love is preserved by the link of obligation, which, owing to the baseness of men, is broken at every opportunity for their advantage. But fear is maintained by a dread of punishment, which never fails. Translation: people's affection for you depends on you continuing to benefit them, which makes it fragile and contingent on circumstances. But people's respect for your boundaries is reliable because it's based on consistent consequences that don't fluctuate with their feelings or situations. This isn't about making people afraid of you through threats or intimidation. It's about understanding that respect based on enforced boundaries is more stable than affection based on benefits you provide. The practical distinction: the person everyone loves but doesn't respect gets walked over constantly. People enjoy their company but don't take them seriously. They cancel on them without guilt. They ask for favors without reciprocating. They disrespect boundaries because there are no consequences. The person everyone respects, even if they're not universally loved, gets treated well consistently. People might not always want to hang out with them, but they treat them with consideration. They keep commitments. They reciprocate. They respect boundaries because violating them creates consequences. Which would you rather be? In professional contexts, the boss everyone loves because they're nice and accommodating gets the least respect and worst performance from their team. The boss everyone respects because they're fair but firm gets better results, even if they're not as personally liked. In personal relationships, the person who's always forgiving, always understanding, always giving second chances gets treated worse over time. The person who enforces clear boundaries, do that again and I'm done, and actually follows through, gets treated with consistent respect. The mechanism Machiavelli identified: humans respond to incentives. If poor treatment of you carries no cost, expect more poor treatment. If poor treatment carries consistent costs, reduced access, withdrawn support, ended relationships, expect better treatment, or for people to self-select out of your life. Both outcomes benefit you. Either you get better treatment, or you eliminate people who won't treat you well. What doesn't benefit you is tolerating poor treatment indefinitely while hoping people will choose to treat you better out of the goodness of their hearts. Machiavelli knew, hoping people will be better than their nature is a recipe for disappointment. Structuring relationships so their self-interest aligns with treating you well is a recipe for success. The transformation protocol: understanding these truths intellectually accomplishes nothing. Machiavelli didn't write theory, he documented practice gained through bitter experience. So here's how you actually apply these insights to transform your relationships from sources of pain and confusion to sources of strategic benefit. Step 1. The relationship audit. Go through every significant relationship in your life and honestly assess: what benefit does this person receive from me? What benefit do I receive from them? Is the exchange balanced or imbalanced? For imbalanced relationships where you're giving significantly more than you receive, you have 3 options. 1. Reduce your investment to match what you receive. 2. Explicitly renegotiate the exchange to restore balance. 3. End the relationship and redirect that energy to relationships that are reciprocal. Most people refuse to do this audit because the results are uncomfortable. You'll discover that many people you think care about you are simply using you, that many relationships you're heavily invested in aren't reciprocated, that you've been volunteering for exploitation because you bought into fairy tales about unconditional loyalty. Do the audit anyway. Discomfort that leads to clarity is better than comfort that perpetuates exploitation. Step 2. The boundary establishment. For each relationship you're keeping, identify what behavior you will and won't accept. Be specific. Then, and this is crucial, determine exactly what consequences will follow if boundaries are violated. The consequence must be something you're actually willing to enforce. If you do X, I'll be upset. Isn't a consequence, it's just information that people will ignore if upsetting you doesn't cost them anything meaningful. Real consequences look like, if you cancel on me without significant notice one more time, I'm done making plans with you. Then actually follow through. The person who establishes boundaries but doesn't enforce them has established that their boundaries don't matter. Step 3. The independence maintenance. Actively maintain a life outside every relationship. Have friends your partner doesn't share. Have hobbies that don't involve your family. Have professional goals that don't depend on any single colleague's support. This isn't about backup plans or keeping options open for betrayal. It's about remaining a complete person rather than an extension of others. Complete people are attractive and respected. Extensions are taken for granted and eventually discarded. Step 4. The respect optimization. Stop trying to be liked by everyone. Start being respectable. The difference: being liked means accommodating others' preferences, even when they conflict with your own. Being respectable means having clear standards and sticking to them, regardless of whether others approve. Paradoxically, being respectable makes you more liked by people worth knowing, because those people are attracted to strength and clear principles. The people who dislike you for having boundaries weren't worth accommodating anyway. Step 5. The exchange consciousness. Stop pretending your relationships operate on pure love or loyalty. Start consciously managing the exchanges. This doesn't make you manipulative, it makes you realistic. Ask yourself, what value am I providing in this relationship? What value am I receiving? Is this sustainable long-term? What would happen if I stopped providing my side of the exchange? Relationships that survive this analysis are worth investing in. Relationships that don't survive are relationships that were exploiting you anyway. The counter-arguments. At this point, you might be thinking, this is too cynical. This eliminates genuine connection. Not all relationships are transactional, or I'm not like this with people I love. Let me address each. This is too cynical. Cynicism is believing people are worse than they are. Realism is seeing people as they actually are. Machiavelli wasn't cynical, he was observational. He documented patterns, not theories. If the patterns feel cynical, that's because human nature is less noble than we pretend. This eliminates genuine connection. Actually, it enables genuine connection. When you stop expecting unconditional loyalty and start building relationships on honest exchange, you create connections based on reality rather than fantasy. The friendships that survive this approach are real. The ones that don't were never genuine anyway. Not all relationships are transactional. Name one that isn't. Your closest friendship. What would happen if you became a constant drain with no reciprocal benefit? Your romantic relationship. What would happen if you stopped meeting your partner's needs entirely? Every relationship has implicit exchange. Acknowledging it doesn't create it. Denial doesn't eliminate it. I'm not like this with people I mind if you love. Yes, you are. You just don't recognize it because you've been taught that admitting self-interest in relationships is shameful. But examine honestly. You stay in relationships that benefit you more than they cost you. You drift from relationships that cost more than they benefit. You invest more in people who invest in you. This is self-interest. It's normal. It's healthy. Pretending otherwise is delusion, the ultimate freedom. Here's what Machiavelli's truth actually offers: freedom from naive victimhood. When you understand that humans operate from self-interest, you stop being shocked by betrayal. You stop being hurt by people acting according to their nature. You stop expecting others to sacrifice their interests for yours when you wouldn't do the reverse. This understanding doesn't make you heartless, it makes you strategic. You can still care deeply about people while recognizing that their loyalty has limits determined by circumstances and self-interest. You can still build meaningful relationships while ensuring those relationships serve your interests as much as they serve others. The person who understands human nature can create relationships that last because they're based on sustainable mutual benefit rather than romantic fantasies that collapse under pressure. The person who denies human nature keeps getting blindsided by patterns that were completely predictable to anyone who understood what Machiavelli documented. The choice is yours. Continue believing people operate from nobler motives than they actually do, and keep being surprised when they act according to self-interest. Or accept Machiavelli's observation about human nature and use it to build relationships that actually work because they're based on reality rather than wishful thinking. Machiavelli died broke, in exile, condemned by the same people who were practicing everything he described while pretending to operate from higher principles. His name became an insult. His work was banned. And yet, his observations about human nature have survived for 500 years because they describe reality with uncomfortable accuracy. People are self-interested. Loyalty is conditional. Relationships are exchanges. Boundaries determine respect. Availability destroys attraction. These aren't moral judgments, they're observable patterns that operate whether you acknowledge them or not. You can reject these truths and keep operating from naive assumptions about human goodness. Many people do. They're the ones constantly hurt by betrayals they never saw coming, shocked by people acting according to their nature, confused about why their loyalty isn't reciprocated. Or you can accept these truths and use them to build relationships that actually serve you. You can identify the rare people whose self-interest genuinely aligns with supporting you. You can establish boundaries that command respect. You can maintain the independence that keeps you attractive. You can create exchanges worth maintaining instead of one-sided arrangements that inevitably collapse. Machiavelli gave you the map. The territory hasn't changed in 500 years. Whether you use the map or keep wandering blindly is entirely up to you. The princes who understood human nature built empires that lasted centuries. The princes who believed in noble sentiments got overthrown and forgotten. In your life, understanding these principles is the difference between being used and being respected, between being abandoned and being valued, between naive victimhood and strategic success. Welcome to reality. It's less comfortable than the fairy tale, but it's the only place where real success is possible.